Hey, welcome to another episode. Today we have Devaya Bopanna, shitcoin collector in chief at Super Team DAO, and we have Cash Danda, core team member of Super Team DAO, looking very, very glitzy today with a new camera. Welcome, Cash. Welcome. How's it going?
Only the best for you, Tanmay.
Guys, so last week has been pretty crazy in crypto, by which I mean everything died and we are down to zero. It's all our portfolios are in the red, and this whole thing began with one event that just cascaded into the rest of crypto. So we got Cash here who's going to explain to us the whole Luna debacle. What happened? What is this algorithmic stablecoin? What happened when it got depegged? What does Luna, the token, have to do with this whole thing? And what is the road ahead? Cash, please take us through the Luna crash and how did Luna work and what happened. Over to you.
And why I can't afford my child's education anymore.
Poor Raghav just running around wearing newspapers. So this is, I think, probably without question, the most interesting and the craziest crypto story that's come around in the last few years, right? To put this in context, the way to really think about what happened over the past week is that there was a massive bank heist that went through. And that bank heist ended up eliminating literally hundreds of billions of dollars off of the market cap of crypto. Luna and Terra specifically got taken for about $40 billion of value, vanished in less than a week. So this has never really been seen before. It's comparable to
Netflix has already sold you a show, Cash. It's a new true crime docu-series.
There will be multiple movies made about this because the story is just crazy. We have charismatic characters like Do Kwon. We have attackers coming in and actually taking money. We have just people literally committing suicide on the back of this. This story is absolutely bonkers. It is a little bit complicated. So we're going to do our best here to try to explain it slowly and clearly, but we're going to tell it like a story because that's what it is. It is really almost like a Greek tragedy or a Shakespearean story. The first part of the story, Act 1, starts with the birth of the Terra ecosystem, right? So there are a few key things to know. This started all in maybe about kind of 2020. Terra is the name of the ecosystem, like Ethereum is the name of the Ethereum ecosystem. But more important than anything else is that it was founded by this guy, Do Kwon, who you can see is relaxing over on the right side. Do Kwon is a really notable name in tech. He's a really fantastic Twitter follow, or he was at least before all of this happened. And he set up this organization called the Luna Foundation Guard, LFG, for Let's Fucking Go, to kind of help shepherd the system over time. So that's person number one you need to know, Do Kwon.
Isn't he the same guy who tweeted, "I don't argue with poor people"?
Yes, exactly. He said he's known for saying like, have fun being broke. I don't argue with poor people. Your size is not size. Basically, he calls a lot of people poor because the guy was worth billions of dollars at a point. The way that he became a billionaire is through the launch of this token, Luna. Luna was the native token on the Terra ecosystem, much like ETH is the native token on the Ethereum ecosystem. And it allows you to do a bunch of things. There's one other critical piece in that is UST, which if you're watching this, you've probably heard of before. UST is a stable coin meant to stay at the same value as $1 US. So stable coin, unlike other tokens, which you want to go up in price, stable coins you actually want to stay steady. And the idea was, let's create a stable coin such that people can use it in the Terra ecosystem. There are other famous stable coins, right? USDC is one, USDT is another, DAI, and so on. All of those have some version of collateral backing them. So if there are $1 billion of USDC, there are $1 billion of like literal US dollars in a bank account somewhere. So whenever UST is at $1, Do Kwon is chilling. He's very happy. But the question is, what happens when UST is not worth $1? That's when Do Kwon gets a little bit upset. Gets very stressed. Now, again, the way that a normal stablecoin would do this is if you would just kind of get more collateral and rebalance the peg. But Do Kwon had a nifty idea. He said, what if we created a mechanism such that $1 of Luna could always be exchanged for $1 UST? And we use this, what's called arbitrage, to like kind of constantly keep UST in line with $1. This was the basic kind of insight. It relies heavily kind of on like game theory and system design. So it's complicated and kind of gamifies the whole mechanic. But the benefit is you don't need all this collateral. So rather than getting $1 billion US in an account and then having $1 billion UST, they can just kind of clap their hands and UST gets created.
So effectively, like Luna was the collateral for UST?
Kind of. And this is what makes it so confusing, is that they used Luna not as literally one-to-one collateral, but
Correct.
Luna was the carrot that would get other people to make sure that UST was always worth $1. So it was kind of like the shock absorber for the system, is the way that they talked about it. So when at its peak, there was maybe 12 or 13 billion dollars of UST around there. There wasn't necessarily 12 or billion dollars of Luna sitting in a vault somewhere. Instead, they just kind of used the marginal Luna to adjust the price. Here's how this actually works in practice. I think an example might make this easier. Basically, if UST price is too high, if it's more than $1, they needed a mechanic to bring it back down. So they created this way that anybody could come and burn Luna, which just means destroy the Luna token, which would decrease the supply of Luna and increase the Luna price. And when you destroyed the Luna token, you got back 1 UST for your trouble. This has created more supply and decreased the price, right?
Correct. If you burn $1 of Luna, you would get 1 UST back, which means the amount of UST in the system increases, which would make the price come down back to $1.
Exactly.
Correct? Okay, got it. Understood.
So let's imagine our good friend Devia here. He has $10 million. Devia has much more than $10 million, but he wanted to use a fraction of his net worth to buy UST on Binance, on the exchange, right? Well, when somebody buys a lot of something, it drives up the price, right? So the UST price now on Binance equals 101. So now the price is too high. Do Kwon is not happy.
Correct.
So Tanmay, knowing what Do Kwon has set up, smells an opportunity. And this is what he does, right? He takes $1 of Luna, burns it in the Terra ecosystem for 1 USD. Then he sells that USD on Binance. And
to make
he gets
1 cent. Yeah.
Obviously, if you do this for just one at a time, it's not very much money, but we're talking of billions of dollars here, right? So there's like real money that can be supporting this, right?
Got it.
The same thing works in reverse. If the UST price is too low, you burn the UST, right? So you decrease the overall supply of UST, which will drive the price up. And in return, you get Luna, right? So again, we can look at an example. Devia this time sells 10 million UST on Binance. The UST price goes down because its selling pressure reduces price. Tanmay smells an opportunity again, that good nose of his. He buys UST for 99 cents from Binance, then goes over to the Terra ecosystem, sells it for $1 of Luna, and now he's made a 1 penny profit again, right?
So this is called arbitrage trading, is it, Cash?
Correct. So a lot of the biggest firms in the world, they make literally billions of dollars a year just doing this kind of stuff. Arbitrage is what keeps prices aligned globally, right? And this goes for any asset, not just like Luna and UST, right? For US dollars, for INR, when they trade in different markets.
Correct. In fact, Dave, the head of FTX, which is Sam Bankman-Fried, he started off by arbing between US and Japanese exchange prices for Bitcoin. Right, the price of Bitcoin in Japanese exchanges was $100 higher or lower. So he would literally buy in the US, go sell it in Japan, or vice versa. So this is how he made a bunch of money in the beginning to then be able to start FTX on his own. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so it seems like small amounts of money, but the volumes really make a big difference. And the best part is it's effectively risk-free, right? Especially with UST and Luna, you were guaranteed you could always get $1. So there's no risk that you have to take. It takes a little bit of time, but that's about it. Right.
But if someone sold a lot of UST, it could depeg UST from $1, right? Because all of a sudden there's way too much UST in the system and there's not enough Luna. And if UST gets depegged, people will start panicking and they might start selling Luna, and then the whole thing can start crumbling.
That's right. But this is what Tanmay just did is called foreshadowing.
Yeah, I'm foreshadowing. Yeah.
This is where things get pretty ugly. But
I have a question, Cash, before we go next. Does Luna, the token, have any other use?
There's some use, right? So like in the same way that Ether has a use case, which is in order to use the Ethereum network, you need to have Ether to spend on what are called gas fees, right? To make the transactions go forward. So there was some utility. But really what happened, and this was the genius of Do Kwon, is that he said, all right, we invented this thing called Luna. Let's invent this other thing called UST. And they both kind of get value from each other, right? UST is valuable as long as the Luna ecosystem is valuable. And Luna, honestly, got most of its value because people wanted UST.
So basically, Luna has to, like, people have to start building on Luna, and Luna has to be successful. The Terra ecosystem has to be successful for Luna to be successful.
Correct.
And then UST is successful because Luna is successful and people are using UST to trade.
Correct.
Got it.
It's like a house of cards. Like everything is built on top of each other, and it's that's why people were always a little skeptical of what's going on.
That's right. There is a critical question here, though. It's like, well, why would anyone want UST in the first place? Like, why would I want UST instead of USDC or any other stablecoin?
Because you were getting 20% on Anchor Protocol.
That's right. So this is the final piece of Do Kwon's genius here, which is they put out something called Anchor. And Anchor, it's kind of complicated behind the scenes, but very simply put, if you gave Anchor your UST, they gave you 20% a year interest on it. Your bank gives you whatever it is, 0.5%, 1%, some very small number. Anchor says, we'll give you 20%. And people started to think that Anchor was fully safe because it has a 20% return rate. So they thought of it like a savings account. So literally billions of dollars of UST was put into Anchor. At one point, about 70% of all the UST that existed was in the Anchor protocol. That was basically the only reason to get UST was to get 20%. Now, where does that 20% come from, you might ask? Well, that's where we kind of start to wave our hands. Basically, the Luna Foundation Guard was paying out about half of that as just like a cost of marketing to get more people to want UST, right? So that's the first thing. That's setting the stage. That's Act 1. Now we get into Act 2. It turns out Do Kwon had some good ideas and people really liked it. Luna immediately starts to take off, right? In the course of less than 2 years, Luna, the token, went from 40 cents to $112 US, right? So if you had invested 100 rupees, you'd have 2.8 lakhs for doing basically no work. It becomes one of the top 10 crypto projects in the world. It is the second largest crypto ecosystem after ETH. It has this giant TVL, which is a metric that we use to measure how much liquidity or how much money is basically in a system. So Terra becomes gigantic. People start thinking that Terra is going to build like the new Alipay, and it's going to be the new payment network for the whole world. They have something called Chai, which is like a mobile payments app primarily used in South Korea, that had $6 billion in transactions. Things are going great, man. Do Kwon is chilling and UST is chilling. UST starts to expand beyond just the Luna ecosystem, and it goes on to Ethereum and Solana and Binance, and you can start to get it everywhere. And this is where the problem starts to emerge, because now UST has kind of weaved its way into all of these different areas. So if one thing goes, everything else is going to get affected as well, right? It's what we call a contagion effect. It's like if UST sneezes, everyone else is going to catch a cold. And so that obviously sets the stage for one last piece. As the Luna is doing so well, and as the Terra ecosystem is doing so well, Do Kwon gets an idea. He says, all right, well, what if now we start to collateralize? We started off just by making this up, house of cards. But what if we actually get some money? So Do Kwon goes and he buys more than 3.5 billion with a B dollars worth of Bitcoin to collateralize USD. And the idea is, well, hey, if UST ever gets depegged, if it ever really falls far away from $1, we can actually sell this valuable asset of Bitcoin. We'll have 3.5 billion US dollars. And then with that, we can buy UST and get the peg back up. So they started to have this idea of a defense fund coming in. And at this point, I think it's fair to say that Do Kwon is considered like, one of the smartest guys in crypto. Everyone's in Luna. You're either making money on Luna, you're making 20% on UST. It really feels like, oh, now the real use cases come in.
Gosh, I'm not kidding. 4 weeks ago, you told me to invest in Anchor. Said like 20% for sure.
that is absolutely a joke. I never said anything like that. In fact, I tried to tell our boy Moray to get away from Anchor as fast as possible, because this shit was a Ponzi from a mile away. But the things are going good. At this point, Do Kwon is regularly making fun of people on Twitter. Billions of dollars are flowing into the ecosystem. He's saying some really out-of-pocket stuff. Like, you should go, if he hasn't deleted his tweets already, you should go back and read them, because they were very funny at the time.
At one point, Do Kwon actually said, Dave, he said that, first of all, after the $3.5 billion of BTC that he bought, he becomes one of the single largest holders of BTC, something to that effect. And then he said the failure of USD would then mean the failure of crypto itself, is what he said, right? And
What
this is a
guy.
clip. This is a clip that started going around now after, the whole thing unraveled.
Which is like understandable, right? You become a billionaire in the course of a year. Weird things happen to your brain, and Do Kwon's brain definitely got very weird. But here's the truth, right? He had a novel insight. He built a powerful ecosystem, and things looked like they were going great until. And this is where we enter Act 3. Because the important thing to recognize here is that this was not just like a Ponzi that was doomed to fail eventually. There is one person or multiple people that attacked this Ponzi. They came and punched out the cards at the bottom of the pyramid so that it would all fall. That's what makes this into a bank heist. There are a lot of crypto projects that like rise up and then fall because they turn out to be worthless. That happens all the time. That's not even a story in crypto anymore. But this was an attack. This was like, bank robbers going into the Central Reserve Bank of India and stealing piles and piles of cash. And here's how they did it. The way that we know all this, everything I'm about to say, by the way, is fully public, right? So there's no speculation in here. All of this happened on chain. So unlike in a traditional bank robbery, unless you have like a camera on the bank robbers, you don't know what happened. This attack happened on chain. So you could go to the blockchain and actually see each step of what happened.
Exciting. So fun this is. This is why I love blockchain. You can actually
Yeah.
see the moment where something happened.
So somebody got the idea. And even now we're more than a week past this. We still don't know who it was. That's another fun thing about this. The suspects are still at large. But there was this idea that the attacker had that they could initiate a death spiral. This gets a little bit complicated, but here's the basic idea, right? Remember that kind of balance. If you think about UST almost like on a seesaw, when the price goes down, you need to add more Luna to the other side of the seesaw to kind of bring it back up and make it even, right? The problem is that this can end into what's literally called a death spiral. As the UST price goes down, you have to mint more Luna and the supply of Luna goes up. As the supply of Luna goes up, though, the price goes down.
Luna goes down, yeah.
Exactly. And now the problem is, if the UST price stays down, then the Luna supply keeps going up, keeps going up, keeps going up, and the Luna price keeps going down, keeps going down, keeps going down. So the lower the Luna price goes, the more Luna you have to mint. To reclaim the UST peg, which makes the price more, and gets more Luna minting.
Crazy. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So in simple terms here, what the hacker needed to do was get the UST price to be less than $1 for a long period of time. Eventually, Luna would get too low and it would become impossible to make enough to get UST back up to $1.
Yeah. This is why the Luna price just collapsed so quickly in like 4 days. Because the more you minted to try and peg it back to $1, the more price of Luna would just start becoming more and more worthless.
It's like trying to put out an oil fire with water, right? Like when you throw water on an oil fire, the fire just gets bigger. It doesn't actually help put out the fire. And that's really what the death spiral exemplified. So there was one thing in order to trigger this death spiral that the attackers needed to do, and that is drain liquidity. So remember, anytime you hear somebody say liquidity, it just means money. They needed to effectively close the door on UST. So the first thing they did on May 8th is they drained what was called the four pool on Curve of its liquidity, which cost about $250 million. Basically, in simplified terms, they're just taking all the money out of the pool. So now no one can go swim. They're like this little child just looking very sad. Then, once the pool was empty, they went over to Binance and became an unlimited seller of UST. Anytime someone wanted to buy UST, let's say they saw UST was down at 99 cents, the attacker would say, nope, have it for 99 cents. Then someone would say, okay, I'll take it only at 98 cents. The attacker would say, fine, have it at this. Until it went down and down and down until it reached about, I think, 90 cents at one point. The crazy thing here is that every time the attacker was selling UST, they were selling at a loss, right? Because they had to get the UST for $1 and they were selling it to anyone that wanted 90 cents.
Yeah.
So they're taking massive losses after already taking out the $250 million here. It is estimated that it was about $2 billion worth of UST that they used to do this attack in total over the course of a few days. This made the UST start to lose its peg. And this is where people started to freak out, as you might imagine. In a single day, Luna, which was the talk of the crypto world, on May 9th, lost 50% of its value, more than 50% of its value in less than 24 hours. Tanmay, you and I were together watching this happen.
Yeah. It was insane what was going on.
And now what happened is that Luna people are very upset. They see the supply continue to go up because the UST price is not going up. So they're getting scared and they're selling as well. And that's why the price is dropping even more. And like we talked about before, the lower the Luna price gets, the harder it is to get up to the UST peg. So that led to
Sorry, go back to the last slide. Go back to the last slide. Traders tried to exchange 90 cents of UST for $1 worth of Luna, but they maxed out only 100 million worth of UST can be burned per day.
That's right. So Do Kwon and them, they kind of saw that this might happen, right? This death spiral was like not a well-known thing. It was a fairly well-known thing about people who kind of thought deeply about these issues, right? So they said, well, one way that we can try and kind of limit the volatility is if we cap how much UST can be minted in a day. That way the Luna supply can only go up so much in a single given day. And the idea is, well, okay, if we're spacing it out over a few days, then we have enough time to sell our BTC, to do all the other stuff that we need to do to get the price back up. So that's why there was a cap. The problem is, once you hit that cap, everyone freaks out because now you cannot sell your UST anymore. If you try to sell it on Binance, the price is just going down continually. Further, and you can't use Curve or any of the other pools to get liquidity to switch out to other stable coins. So you're effectively trapped.
Crazy. So the attackers came with $2 billion.
That's right.
That like crypto attackers are also rich, no? Bank robbers. Have to come in with $2 billion to raid a bank.
Instead of robbing a bank with like guns, you like rob a bank with like tanks and like nuclear missiles. That's basically what they.
So basically, someone really rich had an issue with Do Kwon's tweets.
Maybe. Maybe.
And they took it personally. Possibly. We don't know. All we do know, and this is harder for us to see on chain, but it's fairly certain that this happened, is that at the same time that they were doing this attack, they had a massive short position on Luna, on UST, on Bitcoin, on basically
makes sense for them to benefit
their money. Exactly. Basically, they knew that they could crash the market. And on the short side, that's when they made all their money. So like in traditional world, this would be kind of like insider trading, right? If you know the market is going to go down, then you cannot profit from it. In this case, they were like, well, we're going to make the market go down and no one knows who we are. So we kind of do whatever we want. And so they're able to get away.
I mean, there was a lot of money riding on Luna. A lot of big funds had Luna as a big part of their portfolio. Correct. So what do you do when price of Luna effectively goes down 99% in 4 days? You got to balance out your portfolio, right? So what do? You start selling some of the other assets. And what are some of the other assets? Is ETH. It's BTC. It's a bunch of other altcoins. And that's what made the rest of the market crash as well.
This is Act 4. This is where people get wrecked, right? So by May 12th, the game was done. Luna went down 99%, not just on one day, but on consecutive days. Yeah. Every day it went down to 99% again. So when it was below 1 penny, people were like, oh, well, surely it can't go down any further. No, it did. It went down another 99% from there. LFG, to their credit, they tried to sell the Bitcoin. They tried to defend the peg. They sold billions of dollars of Bitcoin, but they were not able to do it. USD permanently below $1. And now Luna is so cheap that it's basically impossible for this ever to come back. What they actually did here, the Terra ecosystem decided to halt their blockchain twice because they said that there's too many problems. And Peter McCormick said it best here. He said like basically what happened, it's the 89th minute in a football match. The team is losing by 400 points. And so they decided to take the ball and just run away. They basically just said, fuck this, we're out of here. Like LFG, let's fucking go somewhere else. We're no longer fucking doing this shit. So as a consequence, there were attacks on other platforms as well. Chainlink had to halt it. A number of projects shut down. Binance halted trading entirely. Different protocols lost millions of dollars. And of course, individual people got completely destroyed because Luna, which again was a top 10 cryptocurrency asset, went down by the first time I've ever seen this on CoinMarketCap, 100%. Yeah, from $120 to literally zero in less than a month. And there are some fun stories here, like KSI, who's a popular YouTuber, a lot of people will know. On something like May 9th or May 10th, he bought $2.8 million of Luna, thinking it was like gonna go back up. Within 2 or 3 days, that was down to $1,000. He lost $2.8 million in a few days.
Jesus.
Absolutely wrecked. And then there were some people that got wrecked where it's less funny, right? They're as crazy as this story is. There are like real world consequences to these things, particularly in South Korea. There have been 8 confirmed suicides based on the Luna crash, as people thought that UST was a stable coin. They thought it was like a bank account that they could keep their money in. And when all of their money vanished, oftentimes their life savings, their houses.
Yeah. And this isn't like your investments tanked. This is like your fixed deposit tanked. Because everybody thought stable coin, I can remain in stables, I can save in stables.
One piece of advice for anyone watching this, if you are getting 1% at your bank or 0.5% at your bank on interest, and then somebody else claiming to be a bank is giving you 20%, a 40x increase, they're probably not a bank. Right? You should be very cautious when you're working with these kind of protocols. And you have to kind of do your research a little bit and sniff it out, that just because they say it's 20%, just because they say it's a stable coin, it doesn't mean that it actually is, right? This takes us to Act 5. And Act 5 is where we are today, which is basically, what the fuck? No one knows really what's going to happen next because we don't know who did the attack. But what we know is that the consequences are bad. So first off, $45 billion evaporated. So a lot of retail, a lot of like normal people like us lost a lot of money. That's not great. It reduced confidence in the regular everyday person as well to say, well, this thing was supposed to be stable and then they lost all these billions of dollars. So that's not good. That is probably going to hurt crypto adoption in the short term and possibly in the long term. That's bad. Mm-hmm. The second thing is that it's very likely that there are going to be more regulations that come on the back of this. So already the United States Treasury Secretary has come out with statements and other countries are coming out with statements as well. When retail gets affected like this, it governments to come in more. And that is generally a bad thing. Some regulation is probably good for crypto, honestly, to like help clean up these kinds of things. We need it globally. But the problem is governments oftentimes kind of overreact when something bad happens. The pendulum swings too far the other way. So that could also hamper crypto's growth prospects for the short term. And then finally, it's important to know that even though retail is messed up, even though regulations here in Act 5, this is not the first time something like this has happened in crypto. It is the first time it's happened at this scale. It's never been $45 billion vanishing in 4 days before. But this kind of stuff happens here. So, if you lost money in the UST debacle, fear not. Everyone on this call has lost money in something similar. Everyone in crypto has. It's really almost a badge of honor that until you get wrecked.
Not me.
You say not me?
Not me. In fact, I sold Luna at $115. I sold it at the absolute top possible. So life's
a bad
good.
feeling Tanmay is one of the attackers. Checking every box right now.
Better to be safe in these kinds of things. So if you're watching from the sidelines, I will say this. Prices, this is not financial advice. Who knows where prices are going to go? But we work in the ecosystem with builders, and builders are not dissuaded by this. So it is likely that that there are going to be opportunities to get involved now that would not have been there a few weeks ago. So if you're at all interested, don't be dissuaded by this. Now is still, if anything, it's the best possible time.
Yeah, the bear market is when good shit's built.
Yeah, because you really need to be completely crazy to follow your idea when there is no money in the market, right? So I think that kind of sieves out the absolutely crazy builders from the ones who just came because of FOMO.
That's right. This kind of washout, it happens every so often. It gets rid of all the leverage in the system, which is great. And it gets rid of all the con men because now there's not as many people to kind of steal money from effectively, right? Like in forest, they do these things called controlled burns, right? Where they will literally light a forest fire on purpose in order to get rid of all the dead underbrush and whatever else. That is kind of what this is right here, right? Obviously, it was not on purpose, except by the attacker, and everyone else was kind of caught off guard, but it has the same effect, is that the entire space will be better off as a result. So again, the key lesson learned here, do your own research. Do not just ape into things because you see random people on YouTube or Twitter saying that you can get 20%. It's not worth it. We also have some memes. Do you want to look at these real quick?
Is that the only lesson? Okay, cool. I was waiting for the next lesson.
What happened to Do Kwon now? Where is he? Is he tweeting?
Do Kwon's in a bit of hot water, unfortunately. For Do Kwon personally, life has been better. So there have been people coming to his house. So he's had to get police guard outside of his house so that people stop trying to basically kill him. And now it looks as if there will be criminal charges filed against him in various jurisdictions. There are certainly going to be class action lawsuits on the civil side that are going to go against him as well. I think the last one I saw was they were claiming $750 million in damages or something like that. Who knows how successful they'll be? Who knows if he goes to jail? It's possible that he does, but yeah, it's not great to be Do Kwon anymore. He's not tweeting nearly as aggressively as he was before.
But we have memes.
But we have memes.
How those.
Let's take a look at this.
Geniuses bet the farm on an UST algo stable. Fucking crypto. Any way to swap my UST for USD without losing 70% of the value? Time travel. Too late, buddy. Can someone just make a good stable coin, please? What the fuck are you people doing? It's already done. UST. Price mechanical tied to shitcoin, uncollateralized, primitive oracle mechanism with no backstop. No thanks. Then this dude replied to it saying, remind me of this in 1 year. Hey, I can remind you right now if you want. Stablecoin backed by Costco hot dog and Pepsi. Probably better than USD.
Yes, Do Kwon also looks a little bit like Leo in The Wolf of Wall Street.
I can go lower.
Every time when Luna was at $5, they're like, "There's no way it goes to $1. It goes to $1. There's no way it can go lower. It just can't go below 1 penny. Why would anyone even want to sell it? No,
Wow.
It keeps going lower."
If people understood the mechanism, I think a lot of people bought it at 10 cents, thinking that it can't go any lower. But they don't realize that the lower USD goes, the more it has to go lower because they have to mint.
Guaranteed to go lower.
It's guaranteed.
Right.
Mathematically, more Luna will be minted, and that's just bad.
This one is if I buy it at 10 cents, mine works even if it goes to 15 cents, I'm 50% off.
Correct. Exactly. Right? Exactly. Me buying what I think is the dip. It doesn't stop.
It dips all the way down. And then Coinbase has our back here.
Bro, it's fucked. Don't look. Oh, brutal. All right. Fascinating episode. This was very informative. And I think Divya learned a lot, which is a huge achievement.
Yeah.
All of us. Ridiculous.
So now I'm going to try and buy this coin at 0.0004 cents.
That's not the takeaway from this. Thank you, Cash. This was very, very useful. And thank you for saying it in such a beautiful story-like manner. I hope you guys learned a little something. I hope this made sense to you. Why our bags are at negative 75% this week. On that note, you can follow Cash on Twitter. His links are in the DM. Cash makes a lot of crypto stuff easier to understand. And of course, he's a local DAO genius. So you guys should definitely go follow Cash on Twitter. On that note, thank you very much. See you guys next time.